What's going on, guys, in the works, and welcome to another Battlefield 3 Showdown. And I had to do it. So many of you guys wanted to see me do this showdown between the M416 and the M16A3 that I just couldn't say no. Against my hesitations, I'm going to be facing off what many consider the two best assault rifles in the game. But last week we mixed things up a little bit and we did two vehicles. We did the tank destroyers versus the main battle tanks. And the main battle tanks did end up winning in the end, although there were a lot of people who really saw the value in the tank destroyers. So if you want to be a part in this week's episode and have your say in the showdown, be sure to vote in the Facebook poll and leave your comments because I always use them for the next episode. But this week we are doing the M16A3 versus the M416, and so many of you guys wanted to see this because you said, Jake, this is the top tier. These are the two weapons that everyone considers so similar now because they've been patched, and they've always seemed to be conjoined at the hip. And in fact, my first showdown originated from these two weapons. If you go back and watch some of the first showdowns, you can see that one of the first episodes was the M416 episode versus the M16A3, and the M16A3 did win that, in case you were wondering. But since then they've been patched, and I really wanted to revisit them. I was kind of hesitant though, because people get tired of seeing M16, M416, M16, M416, but so many of you guys requested it. I could not deny you guys. This is a subscriber focused series, so we're going to talk about it. But I'm going to do this episode a lot differently than we normally would. Normally I'd show you stats and we'd be like, okay, this is why this is better, this is why this is better. But we all know the stats of these weapons. Instead, I'm going to talk about how they performed in certain scenarios, how I feel with them, the post-patch feel of these weapons. Because statistically, the M16 still reigns a little bit higher in my eyes than the M416. It shoots 800 rounds per minute. It still has that 1.8 second reload time. But it does kind of struggle in certain scenarios where the M416 would win. Now, the biggest advantage of the M16 obviously is the fire rate and the fact that it reloads faster. And a lot of people are like, we'll just give the M416 a faster reload. But now, the reload times are pretty similar. I mean, I think the M416 wins by a hair on an empty magazine, but they're pretty similar. I mean, I think it's like 0.05 seconds or something like that, and that's not really going to save you in the long run, but it is a little bit faster. The empty reload on the M16 is faster though. Now, I think the M16 definitely wins in the close quarter scenario, but what they basically did to the M416 is they reduced the side-to-side recoil on it, and they reduced the initial recoil. And the initial recoil is really what holds a lot of weapons back. You see it a lot with LMGs. They have really, really high initial recoil, especially when firing from the shoulder, just because they are, those heavy-hitting, big chug-chug weapons. But ultimately, what they created with the M416 is a low recoil, medium fire rate weapon that's really easy to stay on target with. Now that makes it really strong in the medium to long range scenarios where the M16 wouldn't be as good, because when they patched the M16, they basically increased the recoil on it. And you can see in my video that I'm really not as good as I used to be with the M16 because I don't use it a ton. But when I picked it up, I was like, okay, this has a lot of recoil. It makes it a lot harder to stay on target. In a lot of scenarios at medium range, I'm like, man, if I had an M416, I probably could have taken that guy down. Because if you look at these weapons, they're really balanced now, with each other, because the M16 does beat it in the fire rate battle. It does shoot 50 rounds per minute faster, but in terms of being, better than one, it's a really close call. And I thought it was going to be, M16 was still going to rule the day. I sat down and I did some field tests with it, and I really I don't think I've ever really been a huge fan of the M16, especially now with that increased recoil. The bloom on the weapon just seems so large now that it just doesn't really do it for me, because it seems very limited now. I won't say that, it's impossible to get people at longer ranges with this thing, because that's not the case at all. It's definitely doable with the M16. I really don't feel like it's that much different. It's just a lot harder to be the laser beam across the map that it used to be, whereas the M416 can do that. So I'm interested to see you guys' opinion on this, because I've got a lot of messages on Facebook, my YouTube account, even on Twitter, asking me to do this showdown, and a lot of the logic behind it was you feel like the M416 just does everything well now, and it's not fair, because what the problem with the M16 was initially, it was that it was average in every stat. Now that they've kind of done that with the M416, they've made another monster, and a lot of people aren't happy with the patch. Well, I look at this now, I'm like, okay, you need to have that accessible weapon for people to start. And the M416 and the M16 both give you different options. You know, I think in the close quarter scenarios, you know, medium, even at some medium ranges, I think the M16 is still going to beat the M416. But in certain scenarios where there's multiple targets, maybe where they're at a medium range of multiple targets, the M416 is going to rule the day. So depending on how you kind of approach a map, how you play, I think both of these are solid options. I really just don't think one is better. So that's where you guys are going to be important this week, because you're going to have to sit down, you're going to have to look at, you know, the clips in the video, you're going to have to look at your own experience within game and make the decision on which you think is actually better, because I know there's got to be a clear-cut winner somewhere, but I have a feeling that this is going to be a very, very close showdown, because, you know, I think we've gotten to the point in Battlefield 3 where we can go beyond the actual statistics. I mean, I could say, you know, the M16 has a 1.8 reload, the M416 has a 1.5 reload, shoots 750 rounds per minute, but you guys already know that. Rather, I want you guys to take your experiences using the weapons, take, you know, the in-depth talk I've given you guys on my experience with them, and make the decision. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode, though. I tried to approach it a little bit differently since it was more common weapons, but I think we want to do something different next week. So I want you guys to leave your comments on which weapon you think is better, you know, vote in the Facebook poll, but I also want you guys to give me feedback on what you would like to see in next week's episode. But if you missed any of our past showdowns, here's an opportunity to catch up, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.